You're listening to the Chad Hasty Show on demand. Good for you. Now download the KFYO app and listen live weekday afternoons 5 to 7 p.m. Central.
Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is the Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty.
Good evening, Lubbock, Amarillo, Abilene, Wichita Falls, Midland, Odessa, over in Dallas, Fort Worth, down in Houston, over in El Paso, and anywhere else, inside or outside the great state of Texas, wherever you may be listening on this Thursday, June, not January, that's crazy, June 6th. 2024. What am I thinking? I guess looking ahead, just a few months away to January. Halfway. We're like halfway through the year. I mean, come on. Already, just like that, we're at June 6th. We've got so much to get into on the program today. A lot to talk about. A lot of different areas to get into. We've got a lot of headlines to cover, obviously, throughout the program today, including the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And it's one of those historic days that you hope people remember. You hope people remember the history of what today was all about, the importance of it. We'll play a speech a little bit later on, not from Joe Biden. Poor Joe. He was over in France today, and he looked just absolutely lost at times. So we're not going to play Joe's speech, but we will play a speech by a former president. And we'll have that a little bit later on for you in the 6 o'clock hour. We've also got some just some other news and headlines around D-Day that we'll get to as well, including a sad one. I mean, we're losing so many, and it's you don't have a lot of the World War II veterans that are alive anymore. I mean, you just don't. And when you're dealing with the 80th anniversary of D-Day, simple math. You just look at the simple math, and you know that so many of these veterans who fought on that day and fought in World War II are passing away, and they're not around to share their firsthand experiences, their knowledge of that day. And that's why it's important to go back and watch some of these documentaries and some of these reports and these firsthand accounts. There are obviously some great movies out there and great documentaries, great series when it comes to World War II, and great movies when it comes to World War II. But to actually hear it from those who participated, those who fought in that war is truly something special, and we're running out of those folks as they are passing away. And today it was reported on CNN that World War II veteran, U.S. Navy veteran, 102 years old, Robert Perschetti, died last week. He was actually about to be on his way to France to commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and he was going to be on, I guess, the honor flight that was going to be transporting veterans to France. So, again, we're losing so much history, and it's one of those where do take some time today and think about the amazing acts of bravery that happened 80 years ago today. We've got a lot to get into. Trump, there's at least a list going around, maybe a short list, if you want to call it that, of possible VP contenders. at least those who are being asked to submit paperwork for vetting. We'll get into that list coming up in the next hour. We'll visit with Brad Johnson from the Texan News coming up at about 5:15, or excuse me, about 5:17 is when he'll join us. We've got some statewide news to discuss and get into. And, of course, we want to hear from you as well. You can text in at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. You can give us a call as well at 1-800-687-0790. You want to text in, sound off on any of the news of the day, or maybe you want to post, you want to say something about D-Day, you can do that. You want to talk about a judge ordering Steve Bannon to report to prison. Yeah, that's another big breaking news story today. We could talk about that as well. Again, the text line is open at 806-680-2790. And when you give us a call, the first voice you hear from when you dial in today, it's not really a sweater. It's more of a hoodie, more of an athletic hoodie that he's got on today. Nick venturing out of the sweater game today and going with a hoodie. Nick, are you doing okay? Are you all right?
I am okay. It's it's funny. First of all, I would consider this a sweater. Okay,
I would not.
Sweatshirt, zip up, whatever you want to call it, because
Sure.
it's a hoodie with a zipper, whatever you call that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call that a sweater.
Okay.
Like you would not see Bill Cosby rocking
On
the Cosby
Texas
Show.
Tech,
Yeah.
zip up.
Yeah, you wouldn't
hooded
see
sweater.
Bill
Yeah.
Cosby or you wouldn't see Mr. Rogers
Right.
wearing one of those.
Well, you know what's funny? Underneath, is a sweater.
Yeah.
You know, so
okay,
I've got,
so
I've got
you
the
do
double
have a sweater. You've got a double sweater on, of
double
course.
sweater.
It's 100 degrees out, and you're wearing a double sweater. Okay, all
Yeah,
right, fine.
that I am. You know, even if outwardly you may think I'm not, rest assured, somewhere on me is a sweater.
That's just insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So you're doing okay.
I am. I was just telling you before we started, I splurged and recently made a fun purchase. A very fun purchase.
A fun purchase.
Now this goes right next to my diffuser in the office, so that's my little fun area. The diffuser, and it's one of those digital picture frames.
Oh.
So you upload however many photos. It doesn't hold a lot. I mean, it's a decent amount. You know, it's got a lot of memory on there.
How many photos does it hold?
Well, it's 32 megabytes.
Okay.
Gigabytes.
Gigabytes?
Maybe gigabytes.
Okay.
It's 32.
Yeah.
We'll just say that.
32 gig. We'll go 32
that sounds
gig.
about
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
All right.
And because right now I have about 15 photos
Okay.
loaded in, and it's less than a quarter.
Okay. Yeah,
filled.
that
So,
sounds about right.
Yeah, it's touch screen, which I did not know.
That's fancy.
Very big surprise.
So
a
that way
fun
you
little
can
surprise.
you can scroll right through.
Exactly.
If
Just
you
keep
accidentally
skipping.
see somebody,
Yeah.
you're like, I'm tired of seeing you.
Can't see that anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also tells the time
Oh.
and the weather.
Oh,
It's very weird.
That's
it's like
very fancy.
It feels like a little iPad.
Yeah.
With a fancy black frame around it. But I had a lot of fun.
yeah.
Setting that up this morning. I don't know what else to put on. Right now, it's photos of my fiance and I took engagement photos
Okay. Very
a
nice.
couple months ago. So it's just kind of on shuffle between some of those. But I kind of want to branch out a little more. You know, I want to get I want to put some other photos, but I don't know what.
You can take a photo of your dog. A lot of people
could do
take
that.
photos of their. You can put a photo of your
that's
dog.
pretty common. I
You
guess.
could do that. You could take a photo of Matt Crow, and
Do I
have
want
his
to
face.
though? I don't know if
It's
I really want
just
to
about
do that.
everywhere else up
That's
here, so you
true.
might as well.
You know what I could do? I could just fill it with selfies. You know,
You
what if
could.
I just take selfies of myself
Yeah,
at various points?
and look at yourself.
Right.
I like that.
Just have a shuffle slideshow.
That's what Matt Crow does.
of myself.
So you might
I
as
wouldn't
well.
be surprised. You know, that sounds right. That sounds like something
Well,
he would do.
just in the studio. There's no pictures of Tom. There's just pictures of Matt.
Right. That's right.
And that's it. So,
Yeah.
and including where Matt sits, there's a Matt looking back at Matt at all times.
That's right. I'm locking eyes with one in the studio next door here.
Yeah.
Maybe I should get him one of these. You know, would he?
It would just be filled with photos of him. That's it.
32 giga/megabytes of
Yes.
Matt Crow.
Yeah, absolutely. The entire time it would just be
Yeah.
different photos of him looking at himself. And it may be a picture of him looking in a mirror, looking back at himself.
Right. With the camera.
With
so
the
it's
camera.
like
Yes, it just keeps going.
Yeah, like an illusion.
Oh, it's terrible. It's
Yeah.
terrible.
Well, I'll keep that in mind then, because how it may be weird, and it will be weird, but he'd appreciate it. He likes looking at himself,
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's a gift idea,
Yeah, well, I like it. I like it. So you're doing good. You got the digital photo frame.
That's all I need. Yeah.
I got a bum ankle. That's
bum ankle,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I was playing a high powered game of let's see, what will they believe? Pickleball.
Pickleball. That's interesting choice,
Well,
but
they ain't gonna believe me about basketball.
Right.
But pickleball.
Yeah.
And I rolled my ankle and boom, fell down.
You still won though. You were winning. You were winning the whole game.
It was
Yeah.
a winning dive
It was,
to hit the ball.
The crowd cheered. Actually, I think I heard it all the way.
People
at
were
my house.
cheering, and then I went down,
Yeah.
and I got back up, but I was like, I cannot continue this, and then it just.
I think the president gave you a medal actually too for your sacrifice.
I think so. I think so.
If I remember.
Absolutely, yeah. So that happened, and let me tell you something: rolling your ankle when you're like in your 20s, it's like you
that
bounce.
sucks. Anyway.
You bounce back. You're like, oh, that sucked. Whatever. But when it's a little bit later on, and I don't feel that old, but after rolling my ankle last night, today I'm like, I feel like Joe Biden. I'm shuffling everywhere. I'm not sure where to go half the time.
Maybe he just rolled a bunch of ankles in his life.
That could be it.
And now you have a better connection with him now.
Maybe so. I don't know. But I did. I felt like Joe last night when I fell just in my backyard.
Yeah.
At
At the pickleball court
the
in your
pickleball
backyard.
court, yes. And hit the ground and went, well, that sucked. In different language, of course.
Right.
And
French, I think, is what
yes,
they say. Yeah.
absolutely. And then throughout the evening, it was just, this is going to hurt for the next day or two. And so I'm feeling a little old. I'm feeling a little Joe Biden-esque after that. So that kind of sucked. 806-680-2790. When we come back, we're going to visit with the folks over at the Texan News, your phone calls, your text, and more.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. The Hunter Biden case is ongoing as we come into the first full week after the 34 Trump felony convictions. Has there been any impact at all in the race? Plus, Buck.
Continue to look at the fallout from the border. The numbers suggest that Biden is in big trouble because of his wide open immigration policies. We'll talk about it on Clay and Buck.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Appreciate you being out there. We now get to visit with our friends over at the Texan News. Brad Johnson joining us here on the Chad Hasty Show. Brad, welcome back. How are you today?
I'm good, Chad. I thought this was going to be a bit quieter given the runoff last week, but that is not the case.
No, there's still a lot going on out there. God bless Texas. There's always news out there for us to discuss. Let's start with one of your stories over at the Texan News, and this is a very interesting one. This having to deal with a Texas stock exchange.
Yeah, so a new stock exchange to be headquartered in Dallas will launch next year, and it's aimed at competing with the two New York City stock exchanges. The various reasons for this include onerous regulations and fees associated with participating. in these stock exchanges, but also the founding group pointed to things like diversity requirements on corporate boards in order to participate in the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ. So the TXSE group is founded and operated by James Lee, and they have said they have already raised $120 million for this Texas-based stock exchange, the largest backers of which include BlackRock and Citadel Securities, which is an interesting pair.
Yeah, it is, and this is going to be something for everybody to keep their eye on, especially those who are watching the for economic reasons and business reasons. This will be a story that you need to read over at the Texan, that's for sure. Another one of the big stories coming out, and we're seeing these pop up all over the place. These license plate readers. Tell us what's going on with these and some of the now issues that may be creeping up.
Well, in 2019, the legislature had a big fight over red light cameras, and they finally well, now this seems like a natural follow-up as police, cities and large and small across the state of Texas are increasingly installing automatic license plate readers that capture the license number and location of each vehicle that passes by. The officers may then compare the plates to those thought in relation to stolen vehicles, missing children, or other crimes. So that's the reason they're used in the first place, to try and cut down on various examples of crime. But because they're continuously collecting data, there's a lot of concern about civil liberties with this, and how far the arm of law enforcement is extending, and does that extend too far in relation to civil liberties of average citizens.
So are we hearing any concern from lawmakers, or are these just concerned citizens that are popping up right now?
Right now it seems to be more at the local level, but that's how these things usually start. It starts as a smaller issue and gets a lot of attention, eventually reaches the legislature. I'm sure there'll be a lot of talk about that when the body convenes next year, but a group like the American Civil Liberties Union is beating the drum on this. It's a big national one. There was a bill introduced by Brian Harrison last year to restrict the use of these, but it didn't make it anywhere. If this becomes or remains an issue over the next 8 months, I think it's pretty safe to say there will be something tried to be done about this. Yeah,
that'll be something to watch for sure. And I know we've got them popping up all over the state. That's for sure. Another story that we wanted to get to today from the Texan.news, that having to deal with a new bridge to Mexico.
Yeah, so President Joe Biden has authorized Maverick County specifically to begin the construction of a crossing or crossings between the U.S. and Mexico. They'll be used for vehicular, pedestrian, and railway crossings, set to be located at Eagle Pass, Laredo, and Brownsville. And it's been tried to become established since 2023. Senators John Cornyn and Ted Cruz have been big on this. Finally, it gets through. I don't think it's a coincidence that this has been approved just a few months before the November election.
Yeah, well, politics at play here. That would be shocking, Brad. That would be shocking. What else are you working on, or anything else you want to promote over at the Texan.news today?
Well, I mentioned the craziness that happened this week. Part of that is this internal House Republican fighting. And we've seen a complaint filed against 4 Texas House members for violating bylaws, caucus bylaws, by campaigning against their colleagues, including Dave Phelan. It's pretty clear that they violated it, and they pretty openly did so, touting it. Question is, are they going to be punished for it at all with anything? They're suggesting it's potentially an expulsion for them. That's possible, very unlikely. The other thing I'd pitch is the Secretary of State issued an emergency guidance on ballot security following the big story we saw a couple weeks ago about ballots being able to be obtained by the public, and being able to see who individuals voted for. Officials have been scrambling behind the scenes for weeks since that broke, trying to figure out what to do, how to respond, and the Secretary of State put out a guidance saying that this information needs to be redacted when FOIAs are filled. So we'll see if that solves the issue. There may need to be legislation followed up next year. Well, I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that lawmakers will probably try to do something to address that, and which they should. I mean, the ballots need to remain secure and secret, and that'll make people feel better, and it'll be a good thing when the ballots are that way. It should be that way. Hey, Brad, thanks for your time today. Appreciate you taking some time to join us, and we'll visit with you guys over at the Texan News again next week.
Thanks, Chad.
Thank you. That's Brad Johnson over at the Texan.news. You can check out all the news that we've talked about and so much more over at the Texan.news. This possible expulsion, which I don't see any of the Republicans who have been accused of campaigning against other Republicans. I don't see them being expelled. And in fact, as I said yesterday, the whole thing just needs to be dropped and people need to move on. When we come back, your phone calls, your text messages, and much more. A lot of statewide news to get to here on the Chad Hasty Show.
Call in to the Chad Hasty Show at 1-800-687-0790. The Chad Hasty Show, broadcasting on the Texas Town Square Media Network.
Heads up, Texas.
So you don't hit my car when I'm sitting at a stoplight.
Heads up, Texas.
So I can ride my bike safely.
Heads up, Texas.
So I can make it across the street without getting run over.
Heads up, Texas.
So I don't have to write you a ticket.
Heads up, Texas, because driving and using your phone is a bad combination. Talk, text, crash. Brought to you by TxDOT.
Snakes, zombies, sharks, heights, speaking in public. The list of fears is endless. But while you're clutching your blanket in the dark, wondering if that sound in the hall was actually a footstep, the real danger is in your hand, when you're behind the wheel. And while you might think a great white shark is scary, what's really terrifying and even deadly is distracted driving. Eyes forward, don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
The news and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. Chad Hasty, talking the news. At the start, middle, and end of your drive home, and when news breaks. This is the Chad Hasty Show.
Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Hope you're having a wonderful Thursday evening out there. Story from the Texas Tribune that I wanted to get to early today. Texas telling local election officials to stop releasing information that exposes how some people vote. Texas top election official Thursday issuing an emergency guidance to different counties aimed at protecting ballot privacy after vote beat. And the Texas Tribune confirmed that private choices from some voters can later be identified using public legally available records. It is imperative that we make every effort possible to provide protections to voters while balancing the public's interest in transparent elections, said Christina Atkins, the election division director for the Texas Secretary of State's office, wrote in a memo to county election officials. In a statement accompanying the new guidance, Secretary of State Jane Nelson said it's unacceptable for any voter to have their ballot choices publicized. Now, this goes back a little bit. A couple of weeks ago, when I believe it was Current Revolt, they went through and they were able to find the ballot of Matt Rinaldi. Well, then after that, there were other sites, I think including Current Revolt, that were able to find the ballots of other very prominent Republicans in the state of Texas. The story from the Tribune goes on to say, when posting records voluntarily to the county website to make them publicly available, the election officials should redact any information on the precinct election records or on the ballot image that identifies the location at which a voter voted before posting. When responding to a specific records request, Adkins wrote that county officials will have to weigh the specific facts of each situation when releasing election records. The information election officials were told they should consider when withholding includes where voters cast ballots, the dates of early voting ballots were received, and some pre-printed ballot numbers. County officials would have to ask the requester to agree to the redactions or seek an open records ruling from the state attorney general authorizing them in those specific circumstances, Adkins said. So this is a little bit of a continued fallout from what we saw just a few weeks ago. Now, the big question is, how big of a threat is this to voter integrity in Texas? How big of a threat is this where you can request, I guess, make an open records request, and if you know the right data, if you know exactly where to look, if you have the right information, you can pretty much expose who people voted for. And your private ballot, your secret ballot, is no longer secret. And with Matt Rinaldi's ballot, when it came out, or the alleged Matt Rinaldi ballot, when it came out, the big deal there that they were trying to hammer him on is that he allegedly voted for Ron DeSantis instead of Donald Trump. He was very vocal about supporting Donald Trump, but according to the ballot that some publications said was his ballot, he had voted for Ron DeSantis. Now, Rinaldi hasn't denied any of this, and it really doesn't matter. I don't care if he voted for Ron DeSantis over Donald Trump. That really doesn't matter to me. The bigger thing here is voter integrity, and we've got to make sure, we have to make sure that our elections are safe, secure, and locked up. We don't want people intimidated. We don't want I had someone who asked me, why would I care? If somebody went through all the trouble of trying to expose who I voted for, why would it matter? Well, listen, the Texas Tribune may not care about your ballot. The Dallas Morning News may not care about your ballot. But what if somebody else wants to? What if some group out there wants to hassle you? What if some group out there wants to put pressure on certain members of the community? What if some group out there wants to put pressure on a local mayor or a state rep or anybody else and say, listen, I will expose who you voted for? Now, you can always come back and say, wait a minute, I'm proud of who I voted for. But there are a lot of people out there who they want their ballot to remain secret. Even if they're going and voting straight Republican, they may not vote in some elections that may embarrass them. Or if they have a friend who's running for office, they decide to vote for somebody else, they may not want their friend to know that they did not vote for them. So it can really open up the doors for some really bad things. And we should have a secret ballot process in place. We need to make sure, and the lawmakers, I think in the next legislative session, they've really got to come back and shore this up and make sure that everything is safe, secure, and private when it comes to voting. There are even some people that I've heard complain who talk about the fact that, when you put your paper ballot into the machine, like here in Lubbock, you put your ballot into the machine and then it prints off your choices and you carry it to another location. Well, depending on how you carry that piece of paper, it'll show who you voted for. And I've heard from a number of folks who kind of have a problem with that, who say, wait a minute, why is this showing who I'm voting for when anybody can just look at the ballot? Anybody can look down and see who I voted for, or if I'm holding it the wrong way, or whatever it may be. I don't want everyone else knowing who I voted for. It's supposed to be a secret ballot. So, this is something that I think is going to continue to evolve and continue we've got to make sure that, we continue to make sure that we have these safe and secure elections, but that we also make sure that people's ballots are protected from being seen, and make sure that your secret ballot truly remains secret. A lot of people really care about that. That's a big issue moving forward. I think it's something that lawmakers may actually tackle in the upcoming session if they feel that if they feel that as though there's something big that needs to happen. Maybe put in a few more protections into place when it comes to requesting ballots and requesting, like they said, certain days and everything else. Maybe they put a few protections in there for the ballots that we cast in different elections. I want to hear from you. You can send in your text messages at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to talk about former President Donald Trump. He's apparently he is asking for paperwork from some of the potential VP candidates. We'll go through the list coming up in the next hour. Is there anyone that gets you excited? Is there anyone that you yawn at? Is there anyone that just makes you go, oh, I can't wait to have their name at the end of the ballot? What do you think? We'll get to that coming up in the next hour. When we come back, your phone calls, your text messages, more news of the day here on the Chad Hasty Show.
Your spirit's sinking down. You find you're not the only stranger in this town. Red lights green.
The Titan of Texas Talk Radio, Chad Hasty.
Talking with newsmakers and about the issues that matter to you. The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Chad's show is also digital with the Chad Hasty Show podcast. The Chad Hasty Show podcast can be downloaded on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and the Radio On Demand page at KFYO.com. The Chad Hasty Show, all across Texas during your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
The Hunter Biden case is ongoing as we come into the first full week after the 34 Trump felony convictions. Has there been any impact at all in the race? Plus, Buck.
Continuing to look at the fallout from the border, the numbers suggest that Biden is in big trouble because of his wide open immigration policies. We'll talk about it on Clay and Buck.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Tomorrow morning at 11.
Day.
Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show on this Thursday evening. Appreciate you tuning in today. 806-680-2790. That's the number you can text in on. You can also give us a call, 1-800-687-0790. Hey, don't forget you can download and subscribe to the Chad Hasty Show podcast. For those of you in Lubbock, early voting continuing, you know that. We also have our KFYO Lubbock Memorial mayoral debate podcast that you can listen to, where you could go back and listen to the mayoral debate from this past Saturday between Steve Massengill and Mark McBrayer. I was moderating that debate, so we have that under the Chad Hasty Show podcast that you can subscribe to, and we've got that up on the KFYO.com website as well. So that way you can go through and listen and then go cast a ballot if you want to. Maybe if you're still on the fence about who you're going to vote for. I don't think that many people are still on the fence, but maybe there are a few out there who are. You can send in your thoughts, as always, on the text line, 806-680-2790. Oh, joy. There's a new Texas Democrat group in hopes to pump millions of dollars into neglected party infrastructure. This out of the Tribune. A team of Democrat strategists unveiled a new group Thursday that aims to turn Texas blue. Ooh, another one of these groups. I love these groups because they keep on wasting money in Texas, and that's fantastic. They plan on turning Texas blue by building up the party's campaign infrastructure over multiple elections, offering a more practical outlet in the eyes of the group's architect for liberal donors who have spent recent cycles showering cash on losing candidates. The new outfit, Political Action Committee, dubbed the Agave Democratic Infrastructure Group, or FUND, will focus on training campaign staff, recruiting down-ballot candidates, engaging public opinion to help Texas Democrats sharpen their message. There's so many of these groups out there, but hey, you know what? You got to make your money. I'm not going to deride you on the hustle. That's for sure. The goal is to build a quote long-term ecosystem of support, resources, and talent that won't dissolve into thin air after Election Day. PAC founder Luke Warford said, "We've seen clearly that demographics are not destiny in Texas. We need to do more to make Texas Democrats sustainably competitive and move past the boom and bust cycle of excitement and momentum that centers around specific candidates." I guess this is the anti-Beto group, maybe. Maybe this is the group that they learned something from Beto O'Rourke, maybe. Warford, the Texas Democrat Party's former chief strategy officer, said in a statement, the PAC's launch coincides with the start of a 3-day Texas Democrat convention in downtown El Paso, where Democrats and delegates are convening to fine-tune the party platform. Now, what do you want to bet? That those who are covering the Democrat convention this week, they're not going to be making fun of the Democrats. They're not going to be deriding the Democrats for their platform. You're not going to see anything about extremist Democrats coming out of El Paso. You probably won't see any of that. You did on the Republican side. Whether it was the Texas Tribune, the Dallas Morning News, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, it was all about the far-right Republicans. I doubt you'll read anything about the far-left Democrats in El Paso. Warford's group overlaps with many of the same functions historically performed by the state party, from recruiting candidates to defining the party's message. The rollout comes as the Texas Democrat leaders continue to face scrutiny for a series of disappointing elections led by the party's failure to flip virtually any seats that it targeted back in 2020. I'm telling you right now, the Texas Republicans, they have been very lucky that it has been a massive cluster around the Texas Democrat leadership. As much of a cluster as some Republicans think that the Republican leadership has been lately, the Democrat leadership has been perhaps even worse. From not being able to recruit candidates. And honestly, it's hard to recruit candidates when you keep getting beat. Like, who wants to be that person? Who wants to be that person to be the sacrificial lamb where you're running for office and you know there's no way. You know there's no chance that you're going to win. You're not going to beat somebody like a Greg Abbott. You're not going to – you go into some of these more rural areas that are bright red. You know you're not going to win. It's going to be hard to recruit people. But – If you want to eventually win, that's what you have to do. Republicans face the same thing in some of these Democrat strongholds, where Republicans just, they give up, they don't run, they don't even try, and that's not how you get into the game. If you want to win, if you want to eventually win and change the direction of an area, you've got to run. You've got to have strong candidates. You can't just go and elect somebody who you think is fun. You can't just go and nominate somebody who you think MAGA enough. They've got to be somebody who's competent, somebody who can win, and that's how you start changing areas. That's how you can start changing cities. But Republicans have some of the same issues when it comes to recruitment and when it comes to fielding different candidates. In the urban areas, Republicans just aren't very good. Democrats aren't well liked, but Republicans just don't try it because they're afraid they're going to lose. And so, that's something that both parties are going to be moving forward on, and probably both trying to capture as many people as possible. But I do think it's funny anytime you see one of these new Democrat groups that pop up where they raise a lot of money. I applaud it. I think it's great because what they're actually doing, and you got to think of it this way, they're usually taking a lot of money from other states, a lot of money meant for Democrats in other states, and they're saying, hey, you know what, we can turn Texas blue. We can do it because that's a goal of the Democrat, the national Democrats, is to turn Texas blue. And so if you can get somebody who says, don't worry, we're only a few steps away, we just need your support, we just need your money, then it makes some of the Democrats nationwide, they forget about the more localized election and they throw some money into the federal election. We saw that with Beto O'Rourke. We've seen that with other campaigns. So I kind of like it because they get away from the hyper focus on the state and nation, and they also take money from they also take money from all around, whether it be Georgia or anywhere else, and they flood Texas with this money, and the Democrats still lose. And that means that, the Republican candidates in those areas, they're doing pretty well because, the Democrats have stopped funding their opponents. So it does kind of work out in the Republican way. Chad Hasty Show, when we come back, your phone calls, your text, and more.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media. Oh. Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is the Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty.
Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Final hour of the program. You can text in at 806-680-2790. Follow me on social media at Chad Hasty Radio on all social media platforms. You can find me. And don't forget the Chad Hasty Show podcast as well. Today, as I think just about everybody knows, we brought it up in the last hour as well, the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And no, I'm not going to play for you the speech from Joe Biden. It was not very good. It was fine, but it wasn't very good. But I did want to play a speech that I consider very good, maybe one of the best speeches from former President Ronald Reagan that was given on the 40th anniversary of D-Day. So we'll play that now and let you listen to this over the next few minutes, and then we'll take the break and we'll be right back on the Chad Hasty Show. But again, this from former President Ronald Reagan back on June 6th of 1984.
We're here to mark that day in history when the Allied armies joined in battle to reclaim this continent to liberty. For 4 long years, much of Europe had been under a terrible shadow. Free nations had fallen. Jews cried out in the camps. Millions cried out for liberation. Europe was enslaved and the world prayed for its rescue. Here in Normandy, the rescue began. Here, the Allies stood and fought against tyranny in a giant undertaking unparalleled in human history. We stand on a lonely, windswept point on the northern shore of France. The air is soft, but 40 years ago at this moment, the air was dense with smoke and the cries of men, and the air was filled with the crack of rifle fire and the roar of cannon. At dawn on the morning of the 6th of June, 1944, 225 Rangers jumped off the British landing craft and ran to the bottom of these cliffs. Their mission was one of the most difficult and daring of the invasion: to climb these sheer and desolate cliffs and take out the enemy guns. The Allies had been told that some of the mightiest of these guns were here, and they would be trained on the beaches to stop the Allied advance. The Rangers looked up and saw the enemy soldiers at the edge of the cliffs shooting down at them with machine guns and throwing grenades, and the American Rangers began to climb. They shot rope ladders over the face of these cliffs and began to pull themselves up. When one ranger fell, another would take his place. When one rope was cut, a ranger would grab another and begin his climb again. They climbed, shot back, and held their footing. Soon, one by one, the rangers pulled themselves over the top, and in seizing the firm land at the top of these cliffs, they began to seize back the continent of Europe. 225 came here. After 2 days of fighting, only 90 could still bear arms. And behind me is a memorial that symbolizes the ranger daggers that were thrust into the top of these cliffs. And before me are the men who put them there. These are the boys of Pointe du Hoc. These are the men who took the cliffs. These are the champions who helped free a continent. And these are the heroes who helped end a war. Gentlemen, I look at you and I think of the words of Stephen Spender's poem. You were men who in your, quote, lives fought for life and left the vivid air signed with your honor. I think I know what you may be thinking right now. Thinking we were just part of a bigger effort. Everyone was brave that day. Well, everyone was. Do you remember the story of Bill Millen of the 51st Highlanders? 40 years ago today, British troops were pinned down near a bridge, waiting desperately for help. Suddenly they heard the sound of bagpipes, and some thought they were dreaming. Well, they weren't. They looked up and saw Bill Millen with his bagpipes leading the reinforcements and ignoring the smack of the bullets into the ground around him. Lord Lovat was with him, Lord Lovat of Scotland, who calmly announced when he got to the bridge, "Sorry, I'm a few minutes late," as if he'd been delayed by a traffic jam, when in truth he'd just come from the bloody fighting on Sword Beach, which he and his men had just taken. There was the impossible valor of the Poles, who threw themselves between the enemy and the rest of Europe as the invasion took hold, and the unsurpassed courage of the Canadians, who had already seen the horrors of war on this coast. They knew what awaited them there, but they would not be deterred. And once they hit Juno Beach, they never looked back. All of these men were part of a roll call of honor with names that spoke of a pride as bright as the colors they bore. The Royal Winnipeg Rifles, Poland's 24th Lancers, the Royal Scots Fusiliers, the Screaming Eagles, the Yeomen of England's armored divisions, the forces of Free France, the Coast Guard's Matchbox Fleet, and you, the American Rangers. 40 summers have passed since the battle that you fought here. You were young the day you took these cliffs. Some of you were hardly more than boys with the deepest joys of life before you. Yet you risked everything here. Why? Why did you do it? Well, what impelled you to put aside the instinct for self-preservation and risk your lives to take these cliffs? What inspired all the men of the armies that met here? We look at you and somehow we know the answer. It was faith and belief. It was loyalty and love. The men of Normandy had faith that what they were doing was right, faith that they fought for all humanity, faith that a just God would grant them mercy on this beachhead or on the next. It was the deep knowledge, and pray God we have not lost it, that there is a profound moral difference between the use of force for liberation and the use of force for conquest. You were here to liberate, not to conquer, and so you and those others did not doubt your cause, and you were right not to doubt. You all knew that some things are worth dying for. One's country is worth dying for, and democracy is worth dying for because it's the most deeply honorable form of government ever devised by man. All of you loved liberty. All of you were willing to fight tyranny, and you knew the people of your countries were behind you. The Americans who fought here that morning New word of the invasion was spreading through the darkness back home. They fought or felt in their hearts, though they couldn't know in fact, that in Georgia, they were filling the churches at 4 a.m. In Kansas, they were kneeling on their porches and praying. And in Philadelphia, they were ringing the Liberty Bell. Something else helped the men of D-Day. Their rock-hard belief that Providence would have a great hand in the events that would unfold here, that God was an ally in this great cause. And so, the night before the invasion, when Colonel Wolverton asked his parachute troops to kneel with him in prayer, he told them, "Do not bow your heads, but look up so you can see God and ask his blessing in what we are about to do." Also that night, General Matthew Ridgway on his cot, listening in the darkness for the promise God made to Joshua, "I will not fail thee nor forsake thee." These are the things that impelled them. These are the things that shaped the unity of the Allies. When the war was over, there were lives to be rebuilt and governments to be returned to the people. There were nations to be reborn. Above all, there was a new peace to be assured. These were huge and daunting tasks, but the Allies summoned strength from the faith, belief, loyalty, and love of those who fell here. They rebuilt a new Europe together. There was first a great reconciliation among those who had been enemies, all of whom had suffered so greatly. The United States did its part, creating the Marshall Plan to help rebuild our allies and our former enemies. The Marshall Plan led to the Atlantic Alliance, a great alliance that serves to this day as our shield for freedom, for prosperity, and for peace. In spite of our great efforts and successes, not all that followed the end of the war was happy or planned. Some liberated countries were lost. The great sadness of this loss echoes down to our own time in the streets of Warsaw, Prague, and East Berlin. The Soviet troops that came to the center of this continent did not leave when peace came. They're still there, uninvited, unwanted, unyielding, almost 40 years after the war. Because of this, Allied forces still stand on this continent. Today, as 40 years ago, our armies are here for only one purpose: to protect and defend democracy. The only territories we hold are memorials like this one and graveyards where our heroes rest. We in America have learned bitter lessons from 2 world wars. It is better to be here ready to protect the peace than to take blind shelter across the sea, rushing to respond only after freedom is lost. We've learned that isolationism never was and never will be an acceptable response to tyrannical governments with an expansionist intent. But we try always to be prepared for peace, prepared to deter aggression, prepared to negotiate the reduction of arms, and yes, prepared to reach out again in the spirit of reconciliation. In truth, there is no reconciliation we would welcome more than a reconciliation with the Soviet Union, so together we can lessen the risks of war now and forever. It's fitting to remember here the great losses also suffered by the Russian people during World War II. 20 million perished, a terrible price that testifies to all the world the necessity of ending war. I tell you from my heart that we in the United States do not want war. We want to wipe from the face of the earth the terrible weapons that man now has in his hands. And I tell you, we are ready to seize that beachhead. We look for some sign from the Soviet Union that they are willing to move forward, that they share our desire and love for peace, and that they will give up the ways of conquest. There must be a changing there that will allow us to turn our hope into action. We will pray forever that someday that changing will come. But for now, particularly today, it is good and fitting to renew our commitment to each other, to our freedom, and to the alliance that protects it. We're bound today by what bound us 40 years ago, the same loyalties, traditions, and beliefs. We're bound by reality. The strength of America's allies is vital to the United States, and the American security guarantee is essential to the continued freedom of Europe's democracies. We were with you then, we're with you now. Your hopes are our hopes, and your destiny is our destiny. Here in this place, where the West held together, let us make a vow to our dead. Let us show them by our actions that we understand what they died for. Let our actions say to them the words for which Matthew Ridgway listened: I will not fail thee nor forsake thee. Strengthened by their courage, heartened by their value, and borne by their memory, let us continue to stand for the ideals for which they lived and died. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. The Hunter Biden case is ongoing as we come into the first full week after the 34 Trump felony convictions. Has there been any impact at all in the race? Plus, Buck.
Continuing to look at the fallout from the border, the numbers suggest that Biden is in big trouble because of his wide open immigration policies. We'll talk about it on Clay and Buck.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
Back on the Chad Hasty Show. Thank you very much for tuning in today. And short segment here as we went a little bit long in that last segment with the speech from 40 years ago today from former President Ronald Reagan. One of his very, very good speeches. He gave many great speeches, of course, and there's so many great. If you want to go down the rabbit hole of D-Day and really good speeches, and of course some historical videos, there's obviously just a ton of documentaries out there that you can find, but also just a ton of great footage of just speeches and remembrances and everything else on YouTube. And one of the things that, and I mentioned this a long time ago about those who are younger, get that iPhone out, that Android, and record stories from your grandparents. There are not many soldiers that we have left from World War II. I mean, there's not that many, and it will not be long before none are left from World War II. And we're seeing so many people go out there and now document and get on tape. I mean, we've seen it for a while, obviously, with documentaries, but now more in depth and just more stories. And then I think that's one thing that we're going to lose out on when these brave men who fought and just tackled so much when we're going to lose them all very soon, and we're going to lose those firsthand accounts. And so God bless them. God bless the memories of those who have passed, and God bless those who have fought for our freedom and did fight on the beaches of Normandy that day, and fought in World War II. And again, we're losing so many of them. It's to me, it's always worth taking some time to go back and rewatch some of these documentaries and some of these videos on YouTube to get these firsthand accounts, because they're absolutely amazing to listen to, and what these, at the time, young kids, young boys went through. The greatest generation for sure, and what they went through and what they experienced on D-Day. There's been a ton of films, obviously, about D-Day and about World War II, but to hear the firsthand accounts is truly special. When we come back, we're going to get into your phone calls, your text messages. Also, Trump and the VP pick. There's a list of names floating around. Who's it going to be? We'll get into that, your phone calls, and more right here on the Chad Hasty Show.
The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays 5 to 7 p.m. Sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. Today's markets from the Texas Department of Ag.
Well, howdy, neighbors. Texas Feeder Cattle Auction reporting prices steady to $5 lower. Cattle futures, however, were mixed. June live cattle futures up a nickel, closed at $181.82. August feeder cattle futures down $1.97, closed at $252.85. July cotton futures up a point, closed at $75.44. July wheat futures up a couple of pennies, closing at $6.78 a bushel. July corn up 13 cents, closed at $4.52. And July soybean futures up 23 cents, closing at $12 a bushel. July soybean meal futures up $3.30, closed at $352.80 per ton. June Class 3 milk futures up 4 pennies, closed at $19.54 a hundred. July crude oil futures up $1.50, closed at $75.57 per barrel, and the Dow Jones was up 78 points, closed at 38,886. And that's Market Roundup from the Texas Department of Agriculture. I'm your commissioner, Sid Miller. And remember, friends, Texas agriculture matters. Sold.
The news and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. Don't you forget about Chad at Chad Hasty Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and on your radio. Now back to the Chad Hasty Show.
Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show, 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. All right, so yesterday some reporting came out that Trump has sent, apparently the Trump team, the Trump campaign team has sent out some vetting paperwork to some different possible candidates for VP. Now, this doesn't mean anything necessarily, except that they are in the vetting process. They're looking through these candidates. They could expand this list. Obviously, this may be the short list. This may be it when it comes to possible VP contenders. So we've got the list here. And let's go through the names. And I want to know from you, and you can text in at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Is there anybody on this list that you just go, all right? Or do you even care? Because you're going to be voting for the top of the ticket. You really don't care who Trump picks. It's not going to affect you one way or the other, which, let's be honest, that's going to be the majority of people. You may have your preferred candidate. You may have somebody that you like, but let's be honest, you're going to vote for the top of the ticket. Trump could really pick anybody for VP. You're still going to vote for Trump. You're not going to be. It's not going to swing you in any direction if Trump picks somebody. So okay, here you go. Here are the names on the VP list, at least the vetting paperwork VP list. Doug Burgum. He is the governor of North Dakota. Billionaire. And I actually like Doug Burgum. When he was in the debates, he had no chance. But he was actually pretty good. And he was, you could tell he's very conservative, but he's someone who has a lot of common sense about him. And he strikes me as a very interesting guy. Like, if he's not VP, Secretary of Ag would be maybe a great spot for him, because he's a rural guy, obviously. And I don't know. He's a very interesting guy. He doesn't have, at least from what I've seen, he doesn't have that big bubbly personality that is maybe gonna, like, he's not gonna be the next in line. Okay. I mean, look, he's going to have the best shot that he's ever going to have if he gets the VP nod of becoming president, just because you're going to be coming off of being VP. But you know, is he really going to be able to carry that carry that fire going into further elections? I don't know, but I kind of like the guy. There's just something about him that I really, really like. And so he's on the list. Marco Rubio is on the list. Marco Rubio is on the list. And you know, that presents some very interesting, very interesting issues there about whether he and Trump could obviously get along. They have been getting along. This would be a big burying of the axe, if you will, if Marco Rubio were to get it. It kind of surprises me that Trump is looking at Rubio just because of the past. But this also shows that both of them are grown-ups and they've moved on and they've worked well together. And Trump likes Rubio. Rubio likes Trump, or at least can stand Trump. Hasn't said anything bad about the guy. And so, yeah, I think this could be an interesting pick here. If it's Marco Rubio. Again, this gives Rubio a lifeline to get back into the presidential talks here in about 4 years. J.D. Vance, U.S. Senator J.D. Vance on the short list. Vance was not a Trump fan, then became a Trump fan. Shows that Trump can bury the hatchet and, can look at what someone did. Speak ill of Trump, and then they can see the light, and Trump will get over it and say, hey, you saw the light, good for you, let's go and win. J.D. Vance, big MAGA guy now. Was not very MAGA at the very beginning of his career, became very MAGA. Tim Scott. Again, Tim Scott, very nice guy. Tim Scott's a very nice guy. I think he would, maybe go after the African-American vote a little bit, maybe. I think Tim Scott would also be somebody who he is very good about battling back against this. Oh well, you're not really black because you're a Republican or you're a conservative, so you're not really black. He does a really good job fighting that stance that a lot of Democrats take. So he would be interesting. I like Tim Scott. Tim Scott's a nice guy. He's not really MAGA. And there's really no big ideological differences between Tim Scott and a Marco Rubio. So I think that's kind of interesting. Byron Donalds, he's an interesting choice. Again, I don't know if he's got enough quote unquote seasoning yet to be VP, but I really like the guy, and he's an up and coming star. And I think that's what Trump really likes about him. Obviously, I think he would appeal, towards maybe some African American voters out there, and maybe expand the base a little bit. But I think Byron Donalds, he's an up and comer, no matter what. If he's VP or not, he's an up and comer. Elise Stefanik, I think, is on this list because of her loyalty to Trump. I don't see, other than the female vote, I really don't see what Elise Stefanik brings to the ticket. Other than being very loyal to Trump, being a New Yorker, I mean, that's something that Trump likes, I'm sure, and being a vocal woman who has supported Trump. She's not all that conservative, though Trump really doesn't care about that at this point. Trump's not the most conservative guy that we've seen in the world. She might be the least conservative out of all these possible VP picks. If you look at her conservative scores and everything else, she's very low on the conservative scale. She's come around. She's gotten better, but she's a New York Republican. That's different than a Florida Republican. That's different than a Texas Republican. A little bit different. And then you have Ben Carson. Oh, Ben Carson. I love Ben Carson. Ben Carson's fantastic. I really do like Ben Carson. He's so nice, though. And here's my problem with Tim Scott and Ben Carson together. Are they attack dog enough? Now, I know Trump's an attack dog, so you don't necessarily need that as a VP, but it's kind of nice to have. And for Ben Carson's been very loyal to Trump, which I sort of think of why he's on the list. He's a very quiet guy. And I don't think that his presence on the ticket would overshadow Trump, which is something that, let's be honest, candidates do care about. Either way, Ben Carson, not a bad pick if I had to go through the list here. I think the least person I'm interested in right now is Elise Stefanik, if I had to be completely honest. What do you think? When we come back, your phone calls, your text, we'll begin to wrap things up on the Chad Hasty Show.
Leaves are falling all around. Time I was on my way. Thanks to you, I'm much obliged. Such a pleasant stay.
The Titan of Texas Talk Radio, Chad Hasty.
Talking with newsmakers and about the issues that matter to you. The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Chad's show is also digital with the Chad Hasty Show podcast. The Chad Hasty Show podcast can be downloaded on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and the Radio On Demand page at KFYO.com. The Chad Hasty Show, all across Texas during your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
The Hunter Biden case is ongoing as we come into the first full week after the 34 Trump felony convictions. Has there been any impact at all in the race? Plus, Buck.
Continuing to look at the fallout from the border, the numbers suggest that Biden is in big trouble because of his wide open immigration policies. We'll talk about it on Clay and Buck.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Tomorrow morning at 11.
Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show, final segment of the program. Tomorrow, an Open Line Friday. Can't wait until then. We're going to have a lot of fun tomorrow. We're going to take a look back on the week, get into a few things that we have not had a chance to talk about on the program. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll also get into the story out of the Dallas Observer that I've had it all week. I've had it sitting here all week, and I haven't gotten to it. It's about the children today, kids in Dallas. They just don't want to drive their cars anymore. They don't want to drive. They don't want to go anywhere. This is just a continuation of what we've seen nationally. But we'll get to that on the program tomorrow. Don't forget, just a couple of housekeeping items here. Don't forget to download the Chad Hasty Show podcast, subscribe, and follow the Chad Hasty Show podcast. Appreciate that when you do it. By the way, just something else to mention. Those of you in Amarillo, we're coming and seeing you guys next week. Yeah, on Friday and Saturday, we're going to be broadcasting out in Amarillo. And Saturday, we're going to be broadcasting from the Knife Guys in Amarillo. I'm going to be going out there Friday morning. I'll probably be getting out in Amarillo and doing a few meet and greets and taking care of some station business up in Amarillo. And then we're going to be doing the show from one of the hotels up in Amarillo. But we're going to have, I know State Representative Smithy will join us out there, and we're hoping to have some other guests join us as we're out there as we talk everything about Amarillo and the Lone Star State and everything else. So we're going to be doing that. If you are if you're a business owner in Amarillo, we'd love to come by, say hi to you. And if you're ever interested in us broadcasting from your business, that's something that we do. And when we take these road trips and go to our other cities, we love broadcasting from different businesses. And so if you're ever interested in us broadcasting from your business, get a hold of me. Send me an email, chad@kfyo.com. That's chad@kfyo.com. Or shoot me a text on the text line and let me know if you'd like us to come by and maybe do a broadcast from your office or from your restaurant or patio or anything you got. We'd love to do so. And next week, we're going to be asking you some places we need to stop at and get some food, all that kind of good stuff while we're in Amarillo. But next Saturday, we're going to be doing a big show out at the brand new Knife Guys location from 1 to 3 p.m. It's going to be an Amarillo broadcast only. Sorry, Lubbock and Abilene, Wichita Falls, you don't get that broadcast. But Amarillo, you do get that broadcast. It's all yours. And that'll be next Saturday. So would love to meet as many of you as possible. We will have some Chad Hasty Show stickers to give out, some of the exclusive Chad Hasty Show stickers that we're going to be giving out. So we'll have those. We're going to have some great deals out at the new Knife Guys location as they get prepped for Father's Day. Great things that you can pick up, great knives that you can pick up for Father's Day gifts over at the Knife Guys in Lubbock, in Bushland, and up in Amarillo. So great locations to serve you. And obviously some great gifts as well from the Knife Guys. So, and if you're wanting to get Dad a gift, why not a knife or maybe a gift card to the Knife Guys? Let Dad go pick out his own knife if you want to do that. We've been talking about these potential VP picks, for Trump. And again, this is just, it's that reporting that's out there. So you're not sure if this is it. Or maybe there's other names here. You don't really know. But this would make sense. If this was the short list, it would not surprise me at all. Some notables that are left off, of course, there is no Nikki Haley, which should not really surprise anybody at all. Nikki Haley's not on this list. Ron DeSantis is not on the list, which, would I rather have Ron DeSantis than Marco Rubio? Yes. Absolutely. And I'm listen, I like Marco Rubio, but I like Ron DeSantis a lot more. So if I could sub out a Marco Rubio for Ron DeSantis, that's absolutely where I'd be going, is Ron DeSantis. But don't count out Doug Burgum. I really do think he's got kind of a chance here at coming out with something. Ben Carson, again, I've met Ben Carson numerous times. He's always been a nice guy. You never hear any bad stories about Ben Carson. You really don't. I mean, he's just a nice guy. You hear him speak, everybody walks away because they like him. He's been out of the spotlight for 4 years, but I mean, listen, he was Trump's HUD secretary. He did a fine job there, even though people the Democrats made fun of him. They're going to attack him. And that's one thing is how well will he be able to withstand the Democrat attacks? And him versus Kamala Harris, boy, I would love to see that. I think Ben Carson could do a really good job. I think Ben Carson would be somebody who would be maybe comforting on Trump's ticket. If it were a Trump-Carson ticket, I think it would be almost a calming presence for Donald Trump. I don't know if Trump's going to be getting off stage and Carson's going to be there. Calm down, Donald. Calm down. And I'm not sure if that'll work. But I could see him being kind of a calming presence for Donald Trump. Tim Scott, again, I like Tim Scott, but in the long run, what does Tim Scott really bring that is any different than what we've seen with a lot of other Senate presidential hopefuls? You could say the same for Marco Rubio. When it comes to Elise Stefanik, maybe she does a little bit of outreach to the female voters, the suburban women, so that's possible. I could see her on the ticket. Again, Trump loves loyalty. She's been very loyal to Donald Trump, so I could see her as a serious pick. Same for J.D. Vance, though I think his chances are kind of bleak compared to some of these other names that are that are on there. Yes, you may have a lawsuit over the whole Marco Rubio in Florida and Donald Trump in Florida deal. Again, it's never been challenged in court. So who knows? From what I've read, it's legal, but it could be challenged in court. All right. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Follow me on social media at Chad HD Radio. Stay safe, stay healthy. May God bless you all. We'll see you tomorrow.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media.